Now for the first speech for today, it's my privilege to welcome Her Lordship, the Mayor of our city, Madam Yvonne Aki-Sawyerr, to come present opening reflections. Let us please give her an enthusiastic welcome as she comes forward to share some opening reflection.
The Honorable Vice President, Dr. Mohammed Julia Jallo, Ministers of Government, Members of Parliament, Paramount Chiefs, tribal heads and other traditional leaders, mayors, council chairpersons and councillors, members of the diplomatic and consular corps, development partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, students and school children, the future of our nation. Good afternoon. So I did take the cue from the Minister of Environment, Minister of Information rather, for go between Creole and English. So I go do a mix. In reviewing the theme, understanding and reclaiming Salone Day, I would feel to say important for let we look back into history. For ask ourselves the question, what are we independent from? And why are we independent? In answering that question, we go look say independence from colonial rule. Na something where the idea behind the implicit assumption that the one way when they colonize you, be invest in getting things them for their own agenda at the expense of we, the one day when we be colonized. So for the people who were colonized, valuable resources were extracted from our lands to fuel the advancement of foreign empires with little or no consideration for where those values had come from. So when we talk about independence then, the natural expectation is that the wealth of our nations will now be directed to the growth and prosperity of our own people. So in the case of Sierra Leone, today, 64 years later, we look back and we review the reality of that assumption. GDP per capita at independence was estimated at around $140 to $160 US dollars in 1960 prices. Sierra Leone at the time had one of the highest GDPs per capita in West Africa. And as we all know, Sierra Leone is a country endowed with amazing natural resources, minerals, arable land, forest, rainfall, beautiful landscapes, rich history, culture, and an education system which in the past produced amazing results and which continues to export our talent around the world today. And as a nation, we have a lot to be proud of. We saw the end of an 11-year brutal civil war and became an example of post-war democratic transitions. We contained a deadly Ebola pandemic with fewer deaths per infected people than in our neighbors in Liberia and Guinea. And we are known around the entire world for our religious tolerance in a world where religion polarizes so many and is ostensibly the cause of so many wars. But the reality remains that at 64 years, our potential has not been fully realized. In 1961, as we were gaining independence, we were compared with countries like Malaysia and Singapore because our per capita GDP was roughly the same. But today, the GDP of Singapore stands at 500 billion US dollars and of Malaysia, $407 billion, whilst we in Sierra Leone have a GDP of only $9 billion. And that being in spite of our natural resource endowments. So as we reflect today in this symposium, it is really important that we are able to take the actions and adopt the attitudes that will enable us to close the gap from where we wanted to be in 1961 and where we are today. And listening to the speech just now of Sir Milton Magai, I couldn't help thinking, as Minister Chenoba said in his few words just after that or before, that so many of the words that he spoke all those years ago continue to resonate today. And I will just quickly touch on a couple of these as part of these my opening reflections. The need for vision and continuity. Having a national vision, he said twice or maybe three times in that speech, for us to succeed, we're going to need everyone. There will be challenges ahead. And indeed, we must ensure that our visions go beyond plans and publicity events, and that they are embraced and implemented nationwide by everyone through effective decentralization and community engagement. Another point which I think is so important and which he touched on only briefly is the need for us to have no overlaps and clear, focused, measured, and monitored delivery of that vision. That means the ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as local councils, must work together and complement each other's efforts. And of course, he spoke to the labor union. And on that note, I think it's important that we remember that the private sector is going to be the engine of our growth. Growth no go come na Salone through foreign support or development aid. That will only ever be a bridge. And for we make sure say we get the future where we want after 64 years. We need long-term sustainable jobs that will only come through strengthening the ecosystem around micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises for wealth creation. And then on to education. Education, the sector that we were so well known for, referred to as the Athens of West Africa. But it's important for us to know and for us to take on the fact that education is not about getting pieces of paper. It's not about getting certificates. It's not, as my teacher, my late principal would say, it's not about you going through the school, but the school going through you. And in order for us to do that, we must truly value learning that is focused on growth of our minds, encourages innovation, and ensures that we have job readiness. Competence. Competence is a really necessary ingredient. When our doctors, teachers, drivers, nurses, firefighters, and civil servants meet a high level of the required skill, then the entire nation benefits. Expression and creativity, and encouraging productive freedom of expression fosters accountability, transparency in the delivery of government services. Space to function. No nation can prosper without leadership that guarantees the independence of all the arms of government, ensuring that the checks and balances that are required to exist between state institutions are there in order to improve, again, delivery of services. And finally, the civil voice. Civil society, through which citizens' participation is enhanced, must remain outside of the purview of government control. The press, a critical component in fostering democratic governance and in holding leaders to account, must be allowed to be independent and operate in a free and open space. So as Salone marks 64 years today or yesterday, the true anniversary, we stand once more, as we do every year, at a crossroads. So whilst we acknowledge the challenges, we also must recognize, say, this is not a country with immense strength and wonderful potential and amazing people. But we need to move beyond the potential. We need actions where we guarantee a future where every young person in our country has access to quality education, meaningful employment opportunities, and empowering even the least to contribute to national development. We need to live in a Sierra Leone where transparent governance fosters trust, where health and social services uplift communities, along with inclusive and sustainable growth. Our national prosperity must be seen, must be felt, and must be tasted by all citizens of Mama Salone. The path forward involves harnessing our rich human capital, continuing investment in infrastructure, and fostering innovation, and very, very importantly, on a day like today, fostering unity. Me, I get confidence say Sierra Leoneans can and will transform these challenges into opportunities, emerging as a nation defined by progress, a nation that converts hope to reality. It's my hope that this symposium will inspire us to take the actions that will make the theme, understanding and reclaiming Salone Day, a national and a natural response of all citizens. Once more, happy Independence Day celebrations and may God bless Salone.